like Anna said, I'm Fred Shakis, a product manager on the KickUp team, and I'm really excited to show you one of the recent innovations we've been working on at KickUp, which is a data feature set that we call dashboards. So over the years at KickUp, we observed some common challenges around gathering and using professional learning data at school districts. And you heard some of those echoed in, and maybe have experienced some of these firsthand. It's hard to find answers with data everywhere, and that can make the use of precious meeting time inefficient if folks are just struggling to wrap their hands on the data. So that is exactly why KickUp has built and is building dashboards. Dashboards are really geared to empower districts and professional learning leaders in three key ways. One is enabling folks to make better decisions faster. The second is to enable professional learning leaders and coordinators to have stronger conversations with administrators. And lastly, we want to make it effortless to report on strategic priorities. So these 7 purposes that Joellen talked about, 7 purposes for evaluating professional learning, will carry that framework into this demonstration of dashboards. And we'll use a specific example of student engagement as one strategic priority that this fictitious district has. But I want to emphasize that you don't have to be a data whiz to build a dashboard for your own strategic priorities and your own purposes for doing professional learning evaluation. So with that, I'm going to jump into a sample dashboard. So program evaluation, as easy as Joellen may make it look, is really hard to do well. And so while no tool can actually do it for you, dashboards can supercharge your ability to conduct effective program evaluation. So in this example, the team began in the problem identification stage by analyzing last year's walkthrough data. And again, the goal that they're focused around, the strategic priority, is driving more student engagement. They had identified that as the focus area for their district. So they started by analyzing last year's walkthrough data. And that was a tool that the district developed to help them operationalize what does student engagement look like in practice. And so they could see that across the board, this is a 3-point response scale that they used. They could see that the percentage of classrooms with substantial evidence for these indicators of student engagement was not very high, ranged between 20 and 30%. So one thing that they did in this stage was they did some further analysis and grouped this data by grade. So I'm updating the group by here. And with that, they were able to see grade by grade what was happening in classrooms with regards to student engagement. So they were able to see that there was a positive outlier with the first grade classrooms, that they were seeing some more success with anywhere from 30 to 60%, depending on the indicator of student engagement. So they also looked at coaching supports that were offered last year as a way of testing the hypothesis that targeted coaching for first grade played a role in that being a positive outlier. So they looked here on the left at the district-wide coaching time from their coaching logs and to see how are coaches spending their time? What components of the framework for teaching were coaches focused on? And they could see that across the district, engaging students in learning was a focus, but it wasn't the top focus. There was more time spent in other components, whereas when they filtered that data down to just first grade staff, they saw that engaging students in learning was in fact the primary focus. And so that confirmed their hunch with regards to that targeted coaching being one of the inputs. So from there, they moved into planning professional development for 24 to 25, the current school year. And they looked at previous professional learning opportunities that they had offered and how those were received by staff. So by tagging sessions with the relevant framework for teaching component and KickUp in learning, they were able to see that there were 35 student engagement related learning opportunities offered uh, in total. So that was only 13% of the overall opportunities that they offered were related to student engagement. And further looking at how those opportunities fell in the school year, grouping by month here, they could see that most of these were offered in the spring, which unfortunately was too late to significantly impact classroom practices in terms of there being time for follow-up coaching and learning transfer into the classroom. They also saw that there were no self-paced opportunities, even though that was a preferred learning format of the staff. So they also dug a little deeper and looked at attendance. And attendance trends here revealed that there were pretty low PD completion rates for student engagement related PD. They could see that only 53 hours over the course of the whole school years, the whole previous school year, only 53 hours had been completed by all staff. And so feedback from attendees was another critical input in their planning process. They actually looked at feedback specifically about sessions targeting student engagement. And they saw, of course, they were looking at this throughout the course of the school year, but looking at it more summatively, they saw that across all the learning opportunities, the content was not deemed to be very relevant. Only 42% of staff found the content to be relevant to their needs in their role. So that gave them some hunches and some opportunities for improvement that they carried into this school year, where they started to plan high quality PD for this school year. So I'll pause there and check in to see if there's any questions from the audience that we can speak to.
Yes, there's a question, Fred. Can districts expect real-time insights, or are there certain data types that require periodic updates? I was just about to type the response, but your timing is perfect, so take it away.
Awesome. Yeah, I can go ahead and answer that live. And thanks for manning the chat, Javi. Yeah, so all data types from across anywhere in KickUp sync in real time. So there isn't anything that users have to do for it to update. In fact, if you have a dashboard open and there's fresh data that comes in, it should update automatically for any type of data. Any other questions? Okay. I will then toss it back to our panel if Donette, if you're still around. I wanted to ask you to weigh in. We know that data is only as useful as a team's ability to make sense of it. So I was wondering, you alluded a little bit to your PDC committee structure, but if you could speak a little bit to any team structures or protocols for effectively reviewing and actioning professional learning data.
Yeah, so it's something we have really had the opportunity to use some of these tools both with, it's a great way to share information in an accessible way. And so, everything from my school board, but then we also have, I mentioned the PDC, we also have what we call cross team, which is kind of our level of our instructional technology specialists, our curriculum coordinators, our data analysts, like that level of people who work directly with teachers. We implement in all of those settings things like these data protocols to really dig in, like you said, to see like what is in the real-time data. We had in mid-October had a professional development day, and we're able to the next day meet and kind of debrief and look at the information and make decisions in regard to upcoming PD, you know, again, in order to make it more accessible to people, to make sure that we were having the impact we wanted. You know, we use when it comes to protocols, we'll often work through, there's an Atlas learning protocol we use, there's some data mining we do, and KickUp just really makes it easy to kind of have people look at the information and then make connections to programs, whether it's our current elementary implementation or another thing that, especially with our Board of Education, we implemented a few years ago, a micro-credentialing program, and we're really monitoring the impact that that's having. And so having discussions about how many teachers do we have completing that, you know, and what is it they're learning about and all those things.
So much, and I'm sure folks would appreciate any links to any protocols that you use, because that sounds really, really effective. So you alluded to implementation and sort of tracking progress as you're actually implementing changes or strategic priorities. So I'm going to move into this last portion of the demo where the professional learning team, fictitious team here, used the data to develop a new strategy that combined targeted coaching with more varied learning opportunities, and they updated their KickUp dashboard to monitor progress to see how that strategy was going. So we're a few months into the school year now, they could see that in terms of coaching and where coaches were focusing their time, engaging students in learning was the primary focus for coaches, which shows them that those concerted efforts were working. And then they also worked with instructional leaders to ensure that fall and summer PD days were more focused on student engagement. So they looked at, again, using the KickUp learning tags, they looked at how many learning opportunities were aligned to student engagement and could see that they were on pace to exceed their offerings from the previous year when it came to student engagement. They also offered some self-paced courses to be responsive to staff expressing that as a preference. And then in terms of attendance, they were able to monitor staff attendance in real time to see were folks and to what extent were folks actually engaging with those learning opportunities. And again, they could see that, yes, staff were completing more PD around engaging students in learning than other categories, which again was just a signal that they were on the right track in terms of this being a focus for their team. And then lastly, moving into evaluating effectiveness and impact. So that's really hard to do, and it involves assessing the link between professional learning and student outcomes. And so just to quickly wrap up this example, the team revisited that classroom observation data that we looked at the very top of the demo. So they could see, using those same indicators that they were using the previous year, that there's still room for growth, but there were notable improvements in terms of these student engagement indicators, with anywhere from 27 to 35%, seeing substantial evidence in the classrooms that they were visiting. They also can look at trends month over month and see that whereas things started out closer to where they were last school year in September, they saw notable growth from September to October. So this is kind of how folks might start to get at the effectiveness. And then I will pass it to Erin for the next portion, but I wanted to close by sharing that it's very important for them to be able to share this data with administrators as well and other stakeholders. And so they can very easily clone the dashboard, anonymize data, and kind of share it with appropriate stakeholders so that everyone has access to that relevant data, and the team can have more informed conversations.
Great.